response.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you all for being here today. The Australian National Audit Office said in January, quote, and it's from its own report, the Department of Climate Change, Energy, Environment and Water, I might have got one of those mixed up, reports annually on progress towards targets, however are unable to demonstrate the extent to which specific Australian government policies and programs have contributed or are expected to contribute towards overall emissions reduction. I find that incredible. We see that solar and wind have taken Australia from lowest cost energy providers, electricity providers, to amongst the highest. Dramatic impacts on cost of living, adverse effects. Inflation, grocery prices, everything is impacted by energy and electricity. Security, international competitiveness. I've just come back from North Queensland, where I've seen massive destruction of the environment up there. And some of the solar and wind projects, large solar and wind projects in Western Victoria and in North Queensland are not even connected to the grid, but we're paying for them. At your behest, the government is completely upending our entire economy. You're destroying the cheap power grid we had. You're going to make it nearly impossible to buy a new Hilux, your Toyota Hilux. You're trying to force everyone into electric vehicles. You're spending $20 billion on Snowy 2 now, and you can't tell anyone whether anything the government has done has actually made a difference. I think that's because it hasn't made a difference. What quantifiable difference have these solar and wind and other so-called policies made?
So, Senator, if it's okay with you, I might just take the ANAO issue, because there was quite a detailed response from the department to that.
Sure, but I'd like to...
So if it's okay with you, I might ask Ms Evans to give you a response.
Response to ANAO, fine, but I'd also like to know what is the quantifiable difference these policies have made to our country.
Yep.
Senator, so I will answer both. So, and in the first part, the department disagrees with the finding that you read out from the ANAO report, and we do in fact have quite a comprehensive way of reporting on policies and programs and what they contribute to our emissions reductions, which Ms Rowley will be able to take you through in a moment. With regard to the sort of overall outcomes, you can see that. In fact, there's part of the same answer, but you see it in our annual national greenhouse gas inventory and all of the results that come from that. And there's a definite decline in Australia's emissions over the period that we've been looking at. And again, Ms Rowley can give you the specific details on that, but I think we're up to about 24 or 25% below 2005 levels at this stage. So all of those policies that you were referring to have contributed to those reductions in emissions, which are contributing to a global response to climate change. But Ms Rowley will take you through the very substantial way in which we track our policies and programs.
Thank you, Ms Evans. Kath Rowley, Head of the Emissions Reduction Division. So the ANAO was essentially seeking measure by measure modelling and tracking of the impact of every policy over time, which we consider is neither practical nor efficient, given that different policies and measures interact, particularly as the policy mix changes over time, and they're also impacted by structural changes in the economy. However, what we do is evaluate the impact of policies and programs on emissions during their development, and that's part of the public consultation on the design of the policies ex ante, so ahead of time. In general, we prioritise policies which are going to have a material impact on Australia's greenhouse gas emissions, and that analysis then becomes part of the cost-benefit analysis to inform government decisions. In terms of reporting on progress, this occurs through a number of channels. So the department and government report against the progress against the 2030 target transparently and independently through channels such as the Climate Change Authority's annual progress report, the Minister's annual climate change statement to Parliament, and Australia's annual emissions projection report, as well as Ms Evans said, we report on Australia's actual emissions over time each year through our national inventory report and every quarter through the quarterly update. both the inventory...
So, excuse me just a minute.
Sure.
So what you're saying, as I understand it, is that various other entities report on this?
Other entities, including the Independent Climate Change Authority and the Department, through its work on the National Inventory and the annual projections.
But they actually report on aspects of it, bits of it, not the whole lot?
No, particularly documents like the emissions projections, which are one of our signature reports. Emissions projections. It's an annual report, and it tracks and projects Australia's progress towards its 2030 target, and I could use that as an example to illustrate how we do look at the impact of specific policies. So the 2023 projections, which were published in December last year, include detailed analysis of the abatement arising from some of the government's key mitigation policies. So, for example, the safeguard mechanism reforms are estimated to deliver just over 50 million tonnes of abatement in 2030, and the projections report provides detail, including the projected mix of on-site abatement and the use of credits over time, as well as how that policy impact is distributed across the different sectors which are covered by the safeguard mechanism. It also includes details of the Australian Carbon Credit Unit scheme, estimating that it will be grow from delivering 17 million tonnes of abatement in last year, 2023, to 30 million tonnes in 2033. Again, the projections provides reports on the types of projects, price forecasts and the sectoral split of activity. Then the with additional measures scenario, which is also part of that 2023 projections report, reports on the potential impacts of some of the policies that are still under detailed design and development. And so, for example, the government's 82% renewable electricity target, supported by measures such as the Capacity Investment Scheme and the Rewiring the Nation program, is estimated to deliver 21 million tonnes of abatement in 2030. And the projections report provides detail across the different electricity grids covered by that target. It also provides quantitative estimates for the fuel efficiency standard for new vehicles, which the government is currently consulting on. And whilst that was a relatively stylised analysis, given that the policy is still being designed, we estimated that that would deliver a net 6 million tonnes of abatement in 2030.
Well, that's a lot of alphabet soup, but thank you. The point is, though, you have no evidence, or ANAO is not convinced you have any evidence. You can't demonstrate how a specific policy has made any difference to the production of carbon dioxide from human activity. That's not me saying it, that's the ANAO.
Senator Roberts, and you'll recall that Ms Evans noted that the department disagrees with that finding, and as I outlined, there are a range of analytic work and public reports that the department and other entities across government conduct to ensure that there is careful analysis of the emissions implications of key policy reforms that have a material impact on policy, on Australia's emissions, and I've given you some examples of that.
Well, I note, Ms Rowley, I don't know if you're aware of it or not, or Ms Evans or Minister McAllister, that no one anywhere has been able to provide me with the quantified specific effect of cutting carbon dioxide from human activity on climate. No one. So what basis is there for tracking policy when there's no fundamental foundation for it anyway? So is anyone able to not only tell me the impact of carbon dioxide from human activity on our climate, any aspect of climate, specific, quantified, how you're able to track that when there's no basis for it?
Senator, I think two things. One is that this is a well-worn path between yourself and
Yet, Minister, I still haven't seen that.
Perhaps I can answer.
Roberts.
And a source of fundamental disagreement. You do not accept the science that human
Correction,
activities...
Chair, I do accept the science.
That human
the actual empirical scientific
activities...
evidence.
Okay, this isn't... Let's not cut across each other.
Well, I want to
There's
make
a
sure
difference.
the Minister doesn't...
Senator Roberts, there is a difference of opinion here, a difference of an interpretation of which science is whose. So if we can just stick to asking the questions, listening to the answers, you can probe it as much as you like, but let's just keep it civilised here. Senator McAllister.
To assist Senator Roberts, I'll put my answer in different terms. This government does accept the science that human activities are inducing global warming that presents a threat to human systems and the biodiversity that our human activities depend upon. I understand from comments you've made previously, Senator Roberts, that is not your position, but that is the government's position. And as a consequence, we are committed to reducing Australia's contribution to anthropogenic emissions to 2050. That is a position that, as I understand it, is bipartisan. I believe that remains the position of the coalition as well. And it is the basis on which we are also committed to that by way of our participation in the processes of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change.
Thank you, Minister.
As a
can you tell me...
But the second point I wish to make was that this is not a feature of the ANAO's assessment at all of the department. The question the ANAO sought to answer was, is the department using its resources well to meet those emissions reduction targets? And the evidence that's been provided to you now by Ms Evans and Ms Rowley goes to the way that the ANAO engaged with that question.
Thank you, Minister. Can you tell me, or anyone in the department, because you're driving this, what is the cost per unit of carbon dioxide decrease to our economy? And what is the cost to individual Australians? I've never seen a cost-benefit analysis or a business case for this ever, and no one has ever said they've done it.
Senator, we might take that on notice to put down a response that adequately reflects the costs and benefits of climate action in Australia.
Thank you, Ms Evans. Specifically, I'd like to know what is the cost per unit carbon dioxide, decreasing the cost per unit carbon dioxide. And I would also like to know your total annual budget, please.
Of the department?
Yes.
Okay, we'll take that on notice.
Thank you.